Welcome to the roguelike iceberg or roguelike and roguelite iceberg chart that we're going to be going over. I made this iceberg chart. It's something that is still a work in progress. So I'm only going over tier 1 today. If any of you are interested in adding to any of the later tiers, moving things around, anything like that, please just let me know, because a lot of this stuff was a lot of my idea for how I ranked these things was based off of basically how many reviews they're getting, because I figured that's how many eyes we're getting on it and how well known they are versus not. And then a lot of the lower tier is some of the older games that are probably lesser known by a lot of newer players to roguelikes. I could obviously add a whole slew more of games to this list, but for the time being, this is what it's going to be. To start off with, I wanted to kind of go over what is a roguelike and what this list is going to comprise of. So roguelike just refers to games that are very RPG in nature, and they follow a very similar rule set as to the namesake of the genre, the game Rogue. So these are traditionally dungeon crawler games. You're going to go through something that's procedurally or randomly generated, a lot of different rooms, items, but still the same core game every time that you go through it, but with a lot of new components every time that you run through it. So it allows for kind of infinite amount of times that you can play these things. Each time that you kind of make a playthrough of one of these, it's considered to be a run. Usually these runs are, an hour long, sometimes shorter, sometimes way longer. But I'm going to refer to each attempt at going through one of these things as being a run. Often, these games also feature lots of characters that you can kind of choose from that help with the variability. They also have lots and lots of equipment that you could potentially pick up as you're exploring these dungeons or whatever you're traversing. You can pick up lots of different equipment, and that's what's making it such a variable game. So this genre is including anything from those traditional dungeon crawlers that's using ASCII and stuff like that, to now like the newer stuff in the genre being deck builders that are like trading card games. Then you have stuff that's like more math and logic based. There's even hockey games and like spin to win type games. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on here. So that brings me to another thing. This list is going to include both roguelikes and roguelites. So a little bit of the difference between the two. Roguelike is very true to what Rogue, the original game, was, which is where a killer character upon a run is built up over time, and then there's a permadeath to that character whenever that character's die. So game is just over. You start from scratch all the way back through. The main characteristics of a roguelike are consisting of random generation, permadeath. They're turn-based a lot of times, non-modal. Their emergent gameplay has a lot to do with resource management. It's also a lot of hack and slash gameplay, so very action-packed. And then it has a lot to do too with map exploration, exploring the dungeons that you're going through. Roguelites, on the other hand, are usually kind of mixing in other genres into that. And then a lot of times too, they'll have kind of meta progressions that either progress a story or they'll progress like the base strength of a character. So upon the next run, they may actually do pretty good. But this list is going to include both of those things since they are both kind of essential to the genre. Without further ado, the first game on our tier list is, of course, going to be The Binding of Isaac. People that don't even know of the genre, obviously, with this being an iceberg, they're going to know these things that are at the top a lot more probably than the things that are going to be on the bottom of this. Binding of Isaac, it's like the modern father of what we know for roguelikes today. It was originally made in 2011 and then got and then Binding of Isaac Rebirth came out in 2014. This was a remake, just added a lot more items, a lot more graphically enhanced it. It's also gotten 3 expansions, with the most recent one being Repentance back in 2022. I just wrote 2023 for some reason. I know that's not right. These expansions kept on adding more and more to it and making it such a nice, replayable, fun experience. The basics of the story is that the main character, Isaac, is a religious zealot, or his mother is a religious zealot, that slowly strips away everything that Isaac enjoys from his childhood due to commandments that she has supposedly received from God. The final command that she is given from God is to kill Isaac. This is to allude to the story of Abraham and Isaac from the book of Genesis in the Bible. As Isaac's mom is charging into the room to go kill him, he, in an act of desperation, flings himself through a cellar door and goes into the basement, where he then fights monsters using his own tears, and eventually reaches his mom, fights her, and a lot of other bosses are to come as well. So as far as the gameplay is concerned for this one, Isaac is fighting through these rooms, as I mentioned, with tears, in a very dungeon crawler-esque format. You're collecting bombs, keys, money, a bunch of different items that all have different tier effects, different stat effects on your character, that are providing upgrades over time for Isaac or whichever character that you pick. And then the difficulty of the game is slowly scaling, and you'll notice this with all the other games too, that it slowly scales to get harder and harder the further down you get. This is starting all the way at the basement floors, basement 1 and 2, and this ranges all the way down to some of the later floors, such as Home and the Void, which you can't access until you've done hundreds of runs, quite literally. In order to go from floor to floor, Isaac has to defeat a boss, and these bosses, again, you'll see this kind of happen a lot with these games, is bosses are kind of randomly pulled from a pool. You'll have kind of the easy bosses that you can get to. So in the basement, for example, on basement 1 or 2, these first couple of boss fights, Isaac can encounter Monstro, Larry Jr., the Gurglings, a whole bunch of other monsters that each have their own mechanics and everything going on for them. As more successful runs are made, more and more things will be unlocked. New characters will be unlocked, new levels, new game modes, like greed mode will be unlocked. It just makes the whole experience infinitely more replayable. There's a total of about 719 items, including all the way up to the most recent expansion for Repentance. So this is why people are still playing this game today, is because it's so infinitely replayable and you can do so many fun, cool things with it. Even if you've experienced it all and gotten all of the achievements, there's still some more to experience, which is like, I have 200 hours into the game, and that's like barely scratching the surface, and there's people that have like thousands, literally thousands of hours in this game. I always find it interesting, a little bit of the story, and the reason for it is that Edmund McMillan, one of the developers, he made this shortly after his 2011 game and Game Jam that he did with Florian Himzel, Super Meat Boy. He based this game a lot on his own childhood, wrapping this roguelike up with Legend of Zelda and mixing in a lot of religious, undertones with things like Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, the Seven Deadly Sins, different things like that. So Macmillan is an atheist, and he's kind of using this game to show like why he is and how much religion kind of stripped away from his childhood. So then next we have Hades, which people that play Hades that I've talked to sometimes, or like, not everyone, but a lot of my friends have played Hades, and they're like, oh, I love Hades. I'm like, oh, do you like any other roguelikes? And they're just like, what's a roguelike? And I'm like, oh, you just play this because you just like, and it did do really, really well. It really blew up in popularity. This was developed by Supergiant Games. They're currently making another one, hopefully to come out next year, coming out hopefully in the near future. But this game is developed around the Greek mythos, and it has a very nice, dark, fantastical ink artwork appeal that's going on for it. So the story itself is mainly featuring Zagreus, who's the son of Hades, and he's the prince of the underworld. He's supposed to be, taking over for Hades, even though Hades can't die because he's an immortal god. So that's weird. Anyways, through each run of the game, Zagreus is just trying to escape hell, or the underworld, Tartarus, whatever you want to call it, and find and reconnect with his mother, Persephone, who gave up on the underworld shortly after Zagreus was born. So he's provided assistance from his from Hades' wife, Nyx, a lot of the other gods of Olympus that send him powers, and then other characters that are from Greek mythology. It's very, very strong on how it progresses through kind of a meta progression with the story, where even on failed runs, you can use different things that you've gotten from inside of the game to come back, upgrade yourself, or even give to other players that kind of help progress the story more and more. That kind of slowly reveals this mystery that's surrounding Zagreus's birth. So you start out each run with Zagreus getting to choose between a weapon of their choice. So there's like a sword, a bow, a shield, a spear. That one's my favorite. I love the trident version of the spear. Or they're all tridents. It's spear-like. Whatever. It's been a moment. So you will also start the game off with a boon that will spawn for you. So boons are basically the gods of Olympus's abilities that they're sending down to Zagreus to help him out. Boons kind of correspond with a specific god. So if your first boon that you picked up was from Zeus, then you're going to get some lightning abilities out of it, or have a choice of lightning abilities. And you can kind of stack and synergize different abilities with each other. So I know Zeus and Poseidon have a synergy ability. A lot of other really, really cool stuff. Dionysus does poison. I wonder if I say his name right. Aphrodite does charm. And they all have their own kind of thing that they do. So the player is going to gradually progress Zagreus down through the levels. You're going to pick up more boons. You're going to pick up more currency. There's 4 layers to this. You're going to progress through Tartarus, Asphodel, Elysium, and the Temple of Styx, eventually trying to take on Hades himself. Each, unlike a lot of other roguelikes that we're going to talk about, each time that you go to the boss, it's the same boss. There'll be some different variants or something. Like the first boss is the Furies, and you may fight a different Fury, but they have very similar movesets to each other. And then you're also, like I mentioned, kind of hinted at before, you're going to be collecting gems, diamonds, keys, darkness, nectar, ambrosia, Titan's blood. All these things are which are going to be able to use when you die. You kind of go back to the main mansion that Hades and his administration abides in, and you will use those to upgrade your weapon, upgrade kind of your base passive stats, being able to revive yourself, stuff like that upon doing a run. And you can also use it to buy cosmetics, music, progress relationships, a whole bunch of other stuff. It's really cool. So next we have Slay the Spire that came out in 2019, or officially in 2019. It was in early access, or that may be, yeah, early access 2017, officially came out 2019. This really helped popularize the idea of roguelike deck builders. Slay the Spire has a special place in my heart. So this one has a bit more of a vague story to it, but the basic rundown of it is that a god named Meow, like meow, but with a N, is a god figure of this universe. And this tower, the Spire, pops up one day, and he's like, I don't like that. I need you to go in and take down the heart of it. So a bunch of adventurers show up and they're trying to take it down, kind of a thing. And he keeps on reviving them every time that they fail to do so. So each one of these 4 characters that you get to choose from, they all have their own little bit of backstory. Such as the guy that's like the face of Slay the Spire. Like when you see the game, you'll see his face. Is the Ironclad. He sold his soul in a trade with the demon for power to be the strongest in his clan. So what the demon did to kind of bypass this trade and do him dirty was killed his entire clan, leaving him by default the strongest member of the clan. And then some other bits of story are just kind of implied as you play through the game. So with starting each run, you're choosing between the Ironclad, who we've already mentioned, the Silent, the Defect, and the Watcher. Each have their very own different play styles, and they start off with their own kind of unique base deck that they're going to start off with. So you can collect more and more cards as you progress through kind of the dungeon. You can also take away cards. You can upgrade your cards to basically get the strongest deck of cards possible. And you're going to use these in kind of a turn-based combat system to do damage and deflect damage from yourself in various ways. You're also, it's kind of cool. I like how it progresses. You have like a map of different routes that you get to go through. So you get to choose between which way that you want to go, and you get to choose between, do I want to like actually take on this fight? Do I want to go to a camp and rest? Do I want to go to this surprise event, kind of a thing? But once you're on that path, you're kind of stuck. going through it. But the more you play, more cards you unlock. Very similar theme as like Isaac or Hades or something like that. The more you play, the more stuff you get out of it, the stronger you get, so on and so forth. So then next we have Enter the Gungeon, which also has a very nice special place in my heart. Even though I've never beaten it, I just love the appeal of it. And it's one that I've currently downloaded and I always circle back to, and I never stick around long enough to actually finish it. That's fine. That's another story for another time. So this is a hybrid between a bullet hell and a roguelike. It's developed by Dodge Roll and produced by Devolver Digital. So the lead designer, Dave Crooks, actually came up with the idea for the Gungeon based off of a soundtrack from the game Gun Gods. So everything in this game is gun themed. The main boss is the dragon. The tiny little bullet men that are walking around that are carrying their own guns and AKs and revolvers and shotguns and stuff. There's wizards that cast bullets. There's Iron Maidens that cast bullets. There's spiders that are weaving and casting bullets. The guns themselves are pretty fun and unique. They're pretty silly at times. There's like one that is a pea shooter. There's guns that are named after like the Winchesters from Supernatural and stuff like that. And then one of my favorite guns, not to actually use, but it's a fun joke. It's a gun that's like the shape of an R, like the letter lowercase r. And as you shoot it, it just says bullet, 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 and spells out bullet. with each bullet is like BULLET. Basic rundown of the story, pretty simple. A large dungeon was created by the Lich, which now houses a gun that can kill someone's past. So people are coming to the Gungeon in the hopes of being able to find this gun, get it, kill their past. Pretty simple. So then the characters that you have to choose from to be able to play this are the Hunter, the Marine, the Pilot, the Convict. You can co-op pick with the Cultist, and there's some other characters that you can unlock as you play the game more and more. So each character is going to start off with their own gun and equipment that's unique to them. You will also, as you're progressing through this dungeon crawler bullet hell landscape, you're going to pick up tons of more guns, like you're holding like 12 guns by the end of the thing, and cycling through using all of them depending on what you think is best for the situation that you're coming across. So as well as the guns, the most interesting thing about kind of the gameplay is that since there is a lot of bullets that are being fired at you, you do have at your disposal the ability to dodge, which makes you invulnerable for like a few frames. You also have blanks, which when you use them, it clears the whole screen of any bullets that are coming down at you. So at the end of every level, much like previous games, there's a boss that you encounter at the end of each level in order to progress deeper into the dungeon, until you eventually come across the dragon, spelled with the GUN, and then you receive the gun that can shoot time and kill your past. Also, another thing that I want to point out with this game, it kind of has like a shop back in like the base before you go into the Gungeon, where you can choose, like, unlock new equipment and weapons and stuff like that. Very similar to the other ones, but you get this currency just through defeating bosses and things of that nature. And then you can also fix like an elevator that can help you shortcut to lower levels in the future as well. All right, Dead Cells, another very beloved game of roguelike fans. I've messed around with it a little. I want to try it again. Not my favorite. That's not what we're here for, but it's one of the first of many Metroidvania roguelike games. It's developed by Motion Twin and Evil Empire. The developers of this game, and I'm really looking forward to it because it's a co-op experience, is called Windblown, and it's like a 3D Metroidvania roguelike. It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to playing with it with my friends. But anyways, Dead Cells takes place on an island where our main character, the prisoner, awakens on the island's prison. So the prisoner is suffering from amnesia, and its head is this like immortal thing, so it can't die, but that head has the potential to kind of consume and possess other bodies, or even corpses in this case. Each run is an attempt to escape this prison, figure out what's going on at the island and everything. So whenever you die, the prisoner's head goes back to the prison cell that he's holding at, takes over a new corpse, and tries it again, kind of a thing. Eventually you find out that this island was a once mighty kingdom that has kind of fallen to this plague called the Malaise. I hope I'm saying that right, which mutated most of the citizens into monsters that you're now fighting. So eventually the prisoner decides to go on and try to kill the king, believing that somehow this is supposed to save the island's course. So it is a 2D action platformer, as kind of the name Metroidvania, cross between Metroid games and Castlevania suggests. The prisoner has access to swords, bows, shields, placeable traps that they can put down in order to cause harm to these mutated citizens, not citizens. Upon death, the prisoner is then, stripped of all of those weapons and upgrades. Sometimes there is some permanent items that you can get as an exception, and the prisoner slowly is going to collect cells throughout the game, and these cells go towards permanent upgrades that the prisoner can make back in the prison. So it's pretty simple story gameplay. It's very straightforward, but very well beloved by people that have played it. And then once again, another personal favorite of many, Cult of the Lamb, which only came out a year ago, or a little over a year ago. You know what I mean? In the year 2022, our Lord and Savior. Yeah. So this was developed by Massive Monster, published again by Devolver Games, same publishers, Enter the Gungeon. And it's known for its like really adorable yet dark sense of style. It has some really cool Twitch integration features. I really liked and honestly like playing this game most for its civilization building and farming gameplay functions that are mixed in with like pretty simple action that goes on. It was very nice. It's a very nice experience. So this was the winner of the Golden Joystick Award for Best Indie Game of 2022, and I know it was a heavy contender for like Game of the Year and stuff like that, but this was the same year that Elden Ring came out in, so I mean, what can you do? So the story is following a lamb, or the lamb, that is saved by a chained up fallen god that is known as the One Who Waits. The lamb was being used as a sacrifice for the Old Faith, led by the 4 bishops. So in order to repay the One Who Waits, the lamb has to gather a cult-like following in opposition to the Old Faith and take down the 4 bishops. The lamb is also going to be aided by Ratau, which is a rat character that apparently did something similar to the lamb with leading a cult and failed. Lamb's forming this cult. You're starting to build up cult numbers, supplies, power in order to defeat these 4 bishops, who are known as Leshy, Heket, Kalamar, and Shumura. And this is all done in order to set the One Who Waits free, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. So the lamb initially sets up kind of like a home base of operations that you get to build upon and literally build your own structures and upgrade them into different tiers, and it's really fun. It's my favorite aspect of the game. So you can also perform sermons and rituals there, and like a church that you have set up. You also are going to do things to maintain the ground, digging up different roots and things that pop up. You can kill critters, although that's not really maintaining the ground. That just gets you some meat to feed people. You also have to manage your starvation and happiness and everything like that for your followers. But I found it really funny that you have to worry about cleaning up the poop of your followers, because all of your followers are animals, so they defecate, and you have to clean that up, or else they get sick and can die from, from being around their own poop. So then when you're not at your base, you're going across, kind of doing these mini crusades into the lands of the Old Faith to help recruit more followers. This is kind of where the Twitch integration stuff comes in. Or one aspect of how the Twitch integration works is people that were watching you play this on Twitch could, get to choose or vote that they want to be one of these followers. So as you induct them into your cult, you're inducting people that are actually watching you on stream. And then NPCs are also found throughout the lands of the Old Faith that help progress the game. And then combat is very simple, as I mentioned. It's just performed through a lot of different types of weapons that are given to you, and a lot of different spells. The catch is that you can only carry one weapon and one spell at a time to be able to use. So you kind of have to pick what is your favorite of them, or what you think will work the best for what you're about to accomplish. And there's also other areas that are around your base that let you do mini games of different sorts and get different upgrades for your base. There's this like mushroom guy who teaches you how to brainwash your cult by getting them to smoke shrooms, essentially. And then I debated putting Rogue Legacy 1 and 2 on this tier. I figured they deserve a spot here because I know they are well loved and fairly well known, since it is carrying on the namesake of the initial namesake of the genre Rogue, which is where the name Rogue Legacy comes from, as it is the legacy of the game Rogue from the 1980s. I honestly, for a very long time, thought that Rogue Legacy was the reason for the genre being called roguelikes, when this was, again, just taking from the Rogue that was way back then. So it is, these two games are modernized interpretations of Rogue and other very classic traditional dungeon crawler roguelikes from the 80s and 90s. It's probably the most pure of roguelikes that we've talked about so far on this tier list so far. For the sake of spoilers, I'm not going to go too much into detail as far as the story, since it's slowly revealed through journal entries and stuff like that. Very similar to other ones that we've talked about. You pick a character of a bunch of different classes that are more RPG or D&D-esque in nature, still going through Metroidvania style gameplay. So for example, one of these classes could be the mage. You're going to start off really low health, but really, really good magic skills. Or you could be the barbarian, really high health, melee. Pretty simple and straightforward as far as that is concerned. This is, at least for the first game, there's a lot of strides and kind of improvements that were made in the second game as far as the differences between classes and how that would feel as far as the gameplay was concerned. And they also even added on more classes than what were already there. So Rogue Legacy 2 is just kind of the expanded version of this game, updated graphics, newer, better bosses, newer biomes to go through, everything like that. Gameplay is very, very Metroidvania centric, like Dead Cells, just depends on what character it is that you're going to play. There's also in Rogue Legacy 2, I should mention, as well as the updated stuff, there's also the addition of challenge rooms that you can go in and complete, and there's also relics that can be picked up and will kind of help aid you in your fight through these dungeons. All right, the final, but definitely not the least, game on tier 1 of this. It's not a tier list, it's an iceberg, so more we work down, hopefully the more games that you haven't heard of before, or at least they're not as well known. So Risk of Rain 2 came out in 2020, is a roguelike third-person shooter that was developed by Hopu Games. It relies heavily on like the co-op aspect of it, which has made it a lot of fun for me whenever I've played it with friends. That's like basically the only time I ever play it, is when I have a friend to play it with. The reason for this is that even if you die, your friend or whoever you're co-oping with can go on and progress the levels without you, and give you a chance to be able to be brought back to life instead of the game just ending right then and there, because it is a fairly challenging game. So the story is also pretty simple. Most roguelikes have a pretty simple story. Some of them get more in depth, like Hades, where they're more story centric, but most of them pretty simple. But anyways, story of Risk of Rain 2 follows the crew of the UES Safe Travels, and they're trying to find survivors to the crew of the UES Contact Light and any other survivors that they might find along the way, while trying to survive alien hostile wildlife. And then they're navigating a planet called Petrichor 5. They're using teleporters. So the goal on each level is you're trying to find a teleporter that will then get you to the next place. Upon activating a teleporter, it's going to spawn in a boss that you then have to kill. What makes this fun is that you don't necessarily always want to go straight for the teleporter and spawn in the boss. You may need to spend some time to actually gather up some experience, because this does function on a leveling up system. So you may need to level up your character before you progress, but you also don't want to take your sweet time, because the longer that you are in the game, the harder naturally it's going to get. Even if you are just on, like, say, the first level, it can get to extremely hard difficulties if you're just there hanging out for 15 minutes or something like that, doing nothing. But you do want to go about, collect experience. You want to get new items to help you progress. A lot of the fun in this game, at least for me, has been choosing between a lot of the different characters that all have very different skill sets from each other. This includes Acrid, Artificer, Bandit, which is my personal favorite, the captain, commando, engineer, heretic, huntress, loader, mercenary, multi, railgunner, Rex, I love Rex too, and Void Fiend. So every character has its own unique set of abilities to it, like I mentioned. So for example, the bandit has a lot of melee attacks that he does with the serrated knife, and then he also has a variety of skills that he can perform with the shotgun, with his special ability being if he gets a kill with the shotgun, all of his other cooldowns for his abilities reset. He also has a smoke bomb, which makes him temporarily invisible. So each run of this game is also pretty cool because you can technically play infinitely and keep on going and going and going. There is an endpoint that you get to, and then you basically decide if you want to just keep on going for the sake of going, kind of a thing. But there is a final level that you do get to and a final boss that you do get to. So as you progress the game, much like the others, you unlock more characters, you unlock more equipment that you then get to use in the future. All right, as I think I mentioned at the beginning of the video, please let me know if there's any more games that you want me to add. I can go on ahead. I already have a huge list that I could add to the whole of this iceberg. I just haven't because I don't know if you want me to go over like 20 games a tier or if you want me to do 8 games a tier. So I try to just do ones generally about 8 games per tier going down. Let me know if you want me to change any of the placements, like you think, oh wow, this game is so well known, how are you stupid, everyone knows what this game is, kind of a thing, as opposed to some of the lesser known ones. Just let me know if any of the placements seem extremely off to you, or if you would recommend even adding more games to these, taking away games that you don't think belong to roguelike or roguelike genres. But at the end of the day, it is my iceberg chart. I will do with it as I see fit, but the input would be greatly appreciated. And thank you so much for watching, especially if you've stuck around for this long in the video. I'm hoping to do some more stuff like this in the future. Obviously, I plan on going through the rest of these tiers, going from tier 2 all the way down. I think there's 8 tiers, but we'll get there eventually. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.